Today, Ms. Steinem will be talking with Walter Cronkite, Dean of American Newsmen. Mr. Cronkite, once anchorman for CBS News and one of America's most trusted media figures, followed a distinguished career in print reporting for United Press International by building a reputation as America's foremost broadcast journalist. Now retired in Massachusetts, Mr. Cronkite spoke with Ms. Steinem at his seaside home on Martha's Vineyard.
There's probably not a person, hardly a person watching this who doesn't believe that they know you. You're like a family member. We've spent all the big public events of our lives with you, but I think people imagine you as being born in a suit and a tie, full grown, right in front of the camera.
Well, now they're finding out.
And I think that's important because people want to know you a little better and who you were before you were Walter Cronkite. Say before you became a journalist.
Wilcox. For a brief time on a Kansas City radio station.
You used that name?
I changed my name, or they changed
Why?
my name to Walter Wilcox. Oh, I guess they, I don't know, it was a 100-watt station, split time. Hardly anybody knows what that is anymore. I don't think there are any. The station only operated from 6 to 9 a.m., noon to 3 p.m., and 6 to 9 p.m. on 100 watts. Even my mother couldn't hear it, and she lived 6 blocks away.
Well, how old were you then? Was that a teenage?
Oh, I was old enough to know better.
There were no journalists in your family. Your father was a dentist. You wanted to be an engineer. When did this idea strike you?
Oh, I think in high school, undoubtedly, or maybe even in junior high school. I did work on the Purple Pup, which was Sidney Lanier Junior High School paper that came out, I think, once a year. I think I did a piece for it.
This is in Houston.
It was in Houston.
Yeah.
Also, I was influenced, I think, at the time by a series in a magazine called The American Boy, which was a series of short stories that were meant to kind of provide some sort of career guidance through short stories of dramatizations of various professions. The two that appealed to me were mining engineering and journalism. And thank goodness I didn't decide on mining engineering, since I flunked first year physics. I couldn't figure out how a pulley worked. And if you can't figure out how a pulley works, I don't suppose you ought to be going down in a mine. But anyway, journalism stuck.
How did your parents take it? Did this strike them as a practical occupation?
Oh yeah, I think so. I think they were rather proud. my scholastic career was never anything to be very proud of, but my extracurricular activities always, some of them were you'd be proud of, some of them would only led to chastisement properly.
So, like which ones led to chastisement?
Well, the nocturnal extracurricular activities.
Yes.
I think. But the
you're going to skip right over that?
Oh yeah,
not tell
skip
us.
right over that and get back to your other question.
Not tell us what they were.
Well, there's nothing more than any other hot-blooded young American boy staying out a little too late, abandoning the car in strange locations around town, a few things like that.
Is this when you acquired your love for dancing?
Undoubtedly. We were dancing fools at San Jacinto High School. Always have been.
But it's important to say that, like your journalism, you've kept up this tradition. You're still a dancer.
I love to dance. Yeah, I sure do.
Where'd you go?
I'd like to have been a song and dance man. If I could sing, I would have chosen something else. I'd have been a song and I think to entertain people would have been a wonderful thing. I was out of school. I'd been working for Scripps Howard, Houston Press. And I was on a vacation passing through my old hometown where I'd grown up as a little boy in Kansas City and stopped to see my grandparents and read that they had started a new radio station. And so I always thought Kansas City was a great metropolis when I lived in Texas. And thought it'd be great to be back in Kansas City and got a job.
Mm-hmm.
And for a year did news and sports, reconstructed baseball and football games, very much like President Reagan did.
Yes, I read about that. You and Reagan have in common that you falsified sports reports.
That's right.
He did baseball, you did football.
Yeah. And, yes, that's right. Yeah, he specialized in baseball. I guess he did some football. I specialized in football and did some baseball. But yes, we falsified reports. We certainly did.
You regret that now? Or
I think he stole one of my stories, as a matter of fact, to tell you the truth. But it could very well have happened to him, too. In those early days of that kind of reconstruction, the Western Union operators were the reporters. They went to the field wherever you ordered a game, and they telegraphed back to an operator in the studio with you the bare essence of the play: who carried the ball, what position they tried to go through left guard or round end or pass or whatever, who received and who made the tackle and how many yards was gained. And that's all you got. And the rest of it you had to build up yourself, telling the whole story that they're back in the huddle now, they're out of the huddle.
Mm-hmm. So you just read what came in
the
on the teletype and described people and pretended that it was actually going on.
And I had the terrible occasion in the Southern Cal Notre Dame game where the wire went down right in the middle of the second quarter. Well, I thought it'd be back, as it usually was. It went down frequently for maybe a minute. Well, you kind of padded with a timeout or something. I had a timeout, and then I had an injury on the field, not serious, of course, and delayed a bit. But then the delay went on. I got the play started again, thinking, well, it'll be back any moment. Well, I kept the ball between the 20-yard lines for the longest quarter in the history of football until finally we got the wire back. By that time, Southern Cal had scored, it turned out.
Well, let's get back to your journalism here. You became a campus correspondent. Once you were at the University of Texas, you became a campus correspondent for the Houston Post. Was that really your first semi-grown-up journalistic job?
Yeah. Actually, in my junior year in high school, I worked at the Houston Post in the summer, and we didn't earn anything before the Guild, and they could get by with that. But they let us cover luncheon clubs, and we'd get a free lunch and pay our car fare, and give us 15 cents to make 3 nickel phone calls during the day. Until later on in my Houston Press job, one of the first economic lessons I ever learned on a newspaper was on the Houston Press, which came a little later than the Post after I was out of Texas University. And I put in for, 30 cents worth of phone calls or something one day. The city editor said, "What is this?" I said, I made 6 phone calls, a nickel apiece then. He said, "You didn't pay for them, did you?" And I said, "Of course I did." "Oh, for crying out loud." He said, "You don't pay for phone calls." "Hey, Harry," and he called Harry McCormick, who was a great police reporter, over, and he said, "Show the kid how to make a phone call." Harry McCormick went over and he took his coat and he had 2 pins, straight pins in the back of the lapel of his coat, took the 2 pins out, and we went over to pay phone, city room of the press. They ask you to make your personal calls on a pay phone, but nobody paid anything, of course, because you took the 2 pins, and at that time the 2 wires came down right into the phone, and they were visible in the pay box. You put 1 pin on one side and 1 pin on the other wire and held them together, and you closed the connection. But the phone company caught on to that.
Did you do
Began
that?
putting everything in cables.
Did you make free phone calls?
Then you make free phone calls. And the
Walter
press
Cronkite started out with free phone calls and falsified football reports.
And I stole pictures. I was a picture snatcher, which was
What's a
an
picture
honorable
snatcher?
profession in the newspaper business in those days. Newspapers are far more responsible today.
Well, what does
than
that
they were
mean,
then.
picture snatcher?
Well, when somebody was, when you needed a picture of a guy who had absconded with the bank's fortune, or a young lady who'd been killed in a tragic auto accident or something, you went out to the home and tried to get a picture and asked for a picture. If they didn't give it to you, you then found some other way to get it, which involved any form of guile that would work, including straight out robbery, such as going to the back door and getting the picture. My career came to a terribly abrupt halt when I got the picture of the young lady who had been killed in a tragic automobile accident. And those days nobody locked their doors. It seems unbelievable today, but even in Houston, Texas, they didn't. And I went out to this house, and nobody was home, apparently. I figured, well, they're all at the funeral home or something of the kind. And I went in, and there's a picture of the young lady on the mantle, and so I borrowed it. We always returned them. I borrowed it, and turned out I was in the wrong house.